Daniel Giamario. I'm here to get together today with Naraya. And this is the monthly video blog. And we are here today to have a discussion about the peak of the current eclipse season. And this will give us an opportunity to discuss the most remarkable experience that we had just outside of Corona, New Mexico, and at Faywood Hot Springs with 20 very brave, courageous, three world-oriented individuals. It was with such gratitude that whole experience came together so well. We want to, share with you a little bit about it. We also today will be looking at some, the trajectory now toward the lunar eclipse. And we're going to be looking a bit at the eclipse season that we're now at pretty much the peak of, as it's about to end at the full moon, the Scorpio full moon, Scorpio-Taurus full moon. And we're going to also bring in near the end of our conversation a look at the charts of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, and also Biden, that I believe that are right on the crosswires and the front lines of these particular aspects that are happening right now. This has been covered in some other blogs and some other writings, but I think this would be a good time to just share about our eclipse experience. And also we're going to be bringing in some new insights about eclipses that I've recently learned from the study of Rudolf Steiner. And so Naraya, our media newsletter, my personal publicity agent and so on, is here with me here in Arizona right now. She's at a different location because we can't be in the same room on different computers. So she's just across the way. And hopefully, we have noticed, by the way, and please have some patience with us today, because there's a bit of a delay. And there's a bit of a delay where when I finish talking and when she starts, and also when we put up the screen share, there's sometimes a little delay. So we'll do our best for you here today. So Naraya, thank you for being with me here today to share about this the remarkable experience we've been having here during this very potent time in this eclipse season. So over to you.
Yeah, hello everybody who is ever watching this on YouTube. It's always a pleasure, joy, and honor to share with everybody whatever the Turning of the Ages Mystery School is up to and what Daniel is researching and brings about in his work, which is of such great use for so many people on the planet at this specific time of the turning of the ages. And so, yes, today it's all about the eclipses. We would like to start with just a little recap of our incredible experience at Faywood Hot Springs Resort in New Mexico, from where we then drove all the way to Corona to actually witness the eclipse with our group of 20 people. And yeah, Daniel, you are a better storyteller than I am. So I hand that over to you, and I just see that I get a few screen shares up here whilst you tell us the stories.
There is no mistake. And for those that have been following what I've been writing about this eclipse season, and particularly about the 4 eclipses from 2012 to next year's one in April, our gathering there was definitely a working, quote unquote, a working. There was an intention in having that group together at that time in that place. It gave us the opportunity to go to the very same eclipse path that happened in 2012, also with Jupiter and Taurus, and the one that just happened, crossing over very important areas of the continental U.S. from Chaco Canyon to Los Alamos to Roswell, basically many parts of the country that are associated with the, with nuclear weapons and with how do we put it, the black budget weapons programs. So many esoteric significances of that area. And we were there actually to represent and to be present for what our school is really all about. And I'm using the word working the way it is in shamanism. We were doing our best in order to send out the intentions for the best possible outcome for global humanity. And so we went to Faywood Hot Springs because that's the place that I had the opportunity to build, to actually design and then have built with Elon a stone circle. And so we were there as an eclipse gathering for a few days before an all-day journey, which was like a circle route around all these major sites in New Mexico. And we just went right by the Trinity site, actually, White Sands, on our drive there. There's a lot of remarkable synchronicities that happened, but let's just start with what happened at Faywood Hot Springs. So there's this remarkable, actually you have I don't see it up here now. You can put that screen. Yeah, there we have it. Beautiful, perfect. This was us gathered together at the stone circle, and we had such sparkling conditions. Because where the stone circle is a complete 360-degree horizontal view. I won't take the time of this video blog to go into everything of significance around the stone circle. We've done so many events there, and to be gathered there at this time, just so close to the eclipse path, was so much incredible gratitude for that. This is what our group looked like as we were up there. Just before sunset. We've had 2 nights that we're together up there on the hill looking at the night sky and doing a night sky presentation. And there's this thing that happened I got to tell you about. It's worth telling, is that it goes back to actually another place where we've done a lot of events, Callanish, which most of you heard me talk about over these last few years as we approach the lunar standstill season. That we had this event, I think it was in 2019, where on the final night of ceremony at Callanish 3, a group, like there must be about 35 of cows, of different colors, shapes, different, there's some bowls, and it was just like a whole mixture. This was not like your genetically modified, all cows looking the same. These were really individually cows. And they came into the circle. Right with us, they wanted to be with us in the circle. And then they started rubbing their bodies against the stones as if to scratch where the midges were on their bodies. And I was just in the midst of telling that story when the following events transpired. A henny, I guess that's the other version of a mule, wandered up to our stone circle and started just wandering around the stone circle. And just pretty much as I finished telling the story, this henny started going from stone to stone, rubbing its back against the stones. I mean, we just could not believe it. And actually, there were certain initiatory things that happened there where a woman who had never really gotten close to a horse, the horse was eating food out of her hand. But this horse just goes, it finally went up to the Capricorn stone where we enter and exit the circle and put its rear end on that stone, rubbing its butt against the stone as it was exiting the stone circle. I mean, it was just one of those kind of magical things that can only happen at the right timing, at the right place. All these things were transpiring at the stone circle. Then we got up at about 5:45 in the morning and drove about a 3.5-hour drive to where the path of totality was. And even there, the synchronicity, we entered into where the path of totality was exactly the moment when the eclipse started, the partial part of the eclipse started. And then we got to where we had chosen to be the ground zero area for our ceremonial part of it, was about 5 to 6 miles before getting to the small town of Corona, New Mexico. And remember, this was right in the center of the path, and also in 2012. And so we found this place just on the ground outside. This was up at 7,000 feet, and we did our observance of totality, of annularity at that particular time period. And maybe let's take a look at, here's some shots we want to share with you about what it looked like during the total phase, the annular total phase. So my sense has always been that an annular total eclipse is just as exact as a total solar eclipse, and I consider them, except for the spectacle, to be equally important as far as the path, the timing, the connection to people's individual charts, global events. This is what we had a chance to take a look at right at the 3-4 minutes of annularity as we were on the ground looking up at it with our lenses. The other one there is most interesting also, if you can, as we're discussing this, that first one, not of the cards, the one that, which is actually a photograph of what was that. It's like we had this amazing clarity of experience. Actually, they had been geoengineering all that morning, but by the time of the eclipse, it had dispersed, and so there's only these sort of like sylph-like clouds that were in the air. And this was the experience of one of the photos that was taken at the time of annularity. It was truly spectacular. And then following the experience of annularity, then we drew cards and shared intentions. We worked with it the way that I've discussed this in the past. The first leading up to the totality or the annularity, it's the releasing of our shadow elements, and then after annularity, then we set our intentions. And the only portion I want of this I want to share is the transmission that came through to me. And it was a declaration, a decree I made, which was to banish completely from this planet anything associated with that Old Testament statement, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, to banish that completely. Because after all, if you keep doing that, and it's been going on for at least 12,000 years, this sort of revenge and, eye for an eye kind of thing, that has to end. Otherwise, it's perpetual and there will not be any eyes left at all. or
No teeth.
Any teeth. That's right, exactly. And so that was actually, for me, the culmination of the working, was saying that. And then we came together. We had this fantastic closing ceremony. I mean, the alignment of the group, of being willing to look at all three worlds, was stunning. Looking at what's really happening in the world, connecting to the celestial, that all is well, that the universe is unfolding as it should, as well as being able to handle shadow material. It was, to me, it was the true essence of what our school is really all about, and I couldn't be more inspired by what happened. The next thing, maybe, let me turn it over to you for a moment, Naraya, and then when I thought that what we do next is to explore those new insights that came from Steiner. It's like a new revelation to me about what eclipses are about.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel, for sharing these stories. We could add many more stories. It was all extremely synchronistic. I can only add from my own experience of gazing into the eclipse at totality, unaided. So I didn't wear eclipse glasses or looking through any kind of device. So just with the naked eye, it really was a swirling, anti-clockwise swirling vortex of lights and colors streaming everywhere. There was so much transmission going on. I've been sleeping 10 hours straight almost every night since the eclipse, and I can literally feel it inside my body doing its workings, and obviously way beyond the level of conscious awareness. That's how this is working on humanity, not only those who have been able to witness that, maybe much stronger on those who have been able and also made the effort to go and witness this, but on everybody. So strong energies coming in here. And in this context, I also want to mention to anyone who might be watching Daniel's prior research and work about all the eclipses, about especially how they impact the USA, and therefore spreading out, snowballing, rippling out into the rest of the world. So there is certainly a whole series of articles Daniel has written about this, called Daniel's Investigations of the US Chart. That is on our website. I will put all the links in the description box of this video. Then there is a YouTube playlist, Astrology of the USA, and also specifically about the Great American Eclipses, the recent Equinox presentation that you did, Daniel. And as I say, I'll put all of these things in the description box below. So if anyone wants to go down the rabbit hole, feel very welcome to check out all these resources, which are entirely free. No paywall there. And also in this context, we want to announce that, as Daniel called himself in his recent post on Monday, an eclipse junkie, and I certainly have joined that tribe as well, the tribe of eclipse junkies. We have already in plan and are making preparations for the live in-person event that we are going to have in Ohio for the eclipse on April 8th, 2024. So that will be, Daniel, will it be 6 nights? Is that correct?
Yes.
Am I remembering that correct? Yeah. And not only to be in the energy of the eclipse and witness the eclipse, if conditions are conducive to see it, but also for a live in-person course of the synodic cycles, if I remember that right. Daniel, do you want to elaborate on that? Whether I got that right or wrong, or what?
One entire day will just be dedicated to the eclipse, and where the venue for the event is just maybe 10 minutes. I hear from Serpent Mound, and Vivian Hurley in our school, who was there with us at Faywood and for this past eclipse, has pretty much become an expert about the pre-colonial Native American mound structures that surround that location. And we're likely to be watching the totality from the top of one of the mounds. According to Vivian, it's the largest, highest one of all the different mounds, and that's in the path of totality. So we'll be going over there for that. However, we're going to weave into that those 6 days an in-person course, one of our 5 courses, full courses towards certification, which is on the cycles of the inner planets. There will be 1 day dedicated to the moon and its cycles. There will be 1 day dedicated to Mercury, 1 day dedicated to Mars, and 1 day dedicated to Venus. So it will be a class that will also be filmed. We're planning on doing that, which will be, of course, the updated version of the course for graduation if one desires to become a fully certified TOTAMS/shamanic astrologer. So think about that. I mean, that's like a once-in-a-lifetime kind of opportunity to be there for that. So maybe the next thing to share is that synchronistically with just before the eclipse, my wife, who's very much into Steiner's material, came upon a writing of Steiner near the end of his life regarding eclipses. And it added a certain extra understanding of them, which does actually correspond to my own experience over the years of working with both solar and lunar eclipses. And I think this is quite timely to take this in prior to the lunar eclipse coming up. And when I look at the charts that we'll be looking at a little bit later in our conversation, it's extremely hard for me not to sense that something quite major, even more than what's happening now, is building up around this full moon. And you'll see how we can work with that, and what could be the intention of those who work with astrology in these ways, how we can actually tune into what could actually be happening over these next days leading up to the full moon. You have the quote there, I think, do you not? Would you like to read the quote?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So this is from Rudolf Steiner, Human Questions and Cosmic Answers. His lecture number 213, Sunlight and Moonlight Eclipses and Man's Life of the Soul. And here is what Steiner says about eclipses. Eclipses of the sun and moon, recurring as they do in the course of every year, may really be looked upon as safety valves. A safety valve is there to avert danger, to provide an outlet for something or other, steam, for instance, at the right moment. One of the safety valves which makes its appearance in the cosmos and to which we give the name of a solar eclipse serves the purpose of carrying out into space in a luciferic way the evil that spreads over the earth, in order that evil may work havoc in a wider, less concentrated sphere. The other safety valve, the lunar eclipse, exists for the purposes of allowing the evil thoughts which are present in the cosmos to approach those human beings who are desirous of being possessed by them. In matters of this kind, people do not, as a rule, act in full consciousness, but the facts are nevertheless real, just as real as the attraction of a magnet for small particles of iron. Such are the forces at work in the cosmos, forces no less potent than the forces we analyze and investigate today in our chemical laboratories.
What's really interesting about that is that I have had a very different kind of experience over the last 30, 40 years when I've worked eclipses with solar and lunar eclipses. And I can really see that the solar super new moon, the solar eclipses are always at the new moon, carry within them this more, the capacity to release the energies that are building, and as Steiner puts it, to release it into the greater cosmos in a more spread out kind of way. While lunar eclipses, and even certain spiritual teachers through the ages have been more concerned about them, Pierre Valliat and others, where they said the only time I'm really scared are lunar eclipses. And I can say that during my own experience with lunar eclipses, there have been, you really have to respect them. I mean, truly, there's forces that take over people, particularly if they stray from the really clear intention of a focused group, or even if you do it alone, to really take it seriously, because there are energies at work during that time that you can be very unconscious to, and the shadow plays itself out quite a lot. And with those thoughts in mind, which actually to me was like a new way of expressing insights about eclipses, which I very much resonate with, I'd like to put some attention on the buildup to the lunar eclipse. If you have the chart of the lunar eclipse, and this is not a total, what happens every year is that usually there's from a couple of eclipse seasons to the next couple of eclipse seasons, the focus moves from solar to lunar. And so during this time period of the annularity and next eclipse season, which is the total solar eclipse going across continental U.S., the emphasis is on the solar eclipses, not the lunar eclipses. So this is only a partial eclipse. But about 12%, 12 to 13% of the moon being covered. Those in the Americas are not going to be seeing it because it'll be happening in the afternoon. But those in Europe and Africa and a good portion of Asia will be able to see the lunar eclipse, the partial lunar eclipse. But the aspects that are happening, if you take a look at this chart, it's with Mars in the underworld, Mercury on the other side of the sun. So that Mercury in Scorpio is on the other side of the sun in his cyclopomp phase, and Mars in Scorpio in the underworld portion of his journey. And you could imagine that of any archetype of the masculine, the one that is most, how do we say, resonant however you want to look at it, good or evil, or black and white, or shadow and light, then Mercury would be, Mars in Scorpio would be most resonant with the underworld dimension. And so there he is on the other side of the sun. Meanwhile, you can see that Jupiter is with the moon. You might also know, so that whatever Jupiter is with, it's amplifying. And we don't have time in this vlogcast to go into everything about the Jupiter-Uranian configuration, which peaks in April, but even now they're close enough to be on any chart as a conjunction. And here we have Jupiter with the moon, and wherever Jupiter is, it's expanding. So Jupiter is expanding the moon, and it's the sun. There's some kind of distortion happening there. Do you hear that? Do you hear that on your end?
We have a jet go over. So just give us a moment. We have a jet go over. That's what the sound is, but it's gone now.
Okay. So if you can see here, and this is something to keep note of, unlike a solar eclipse, new moon, where the sun and the moon are together, here we have the resonant polarity of Scorpio and Taurus. So most people will say, oh, yes, a Taurus full moon. However, it's equally important that the sun is in Scorpio. So it's the entire polarity of sun in Scorpio, moon in Taurus, and Jupiter, therefore, could be said to be amplifying both of them. So it's bringing a really peak intensity to this. Now, you'll notice the nodes are about 11 degrees from the sun and the moon. And it's when they're that far away that you only have a partial. They have to be much closer to have a total. Nevertheless, where the nodal axis, where it's actually, during an eclipse season, the nodes will stay kind of at the same degree for 2 to 3 months. So this 24-25 area of Libra and Aries is also super important as we're building up to this full moon. And with that in mind, there's some really remarkable things. So we're bringing in some current event stuff here. If you want, maybe put up the Israel horoscope.
All right, just a second, please. Hang on. Israel, here we go.
Any moment here. So I've been looking a lot at the charts of Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu, and then others keep pointing out how absolutely connected this eclipse season has been to the chart of Joe Biden. So here we have Israel's horoscope. And if we go back to the solar eclipse, but even it's certainly still in play with the lunar eclipse, you can Uranus has been on the sun, very close to the sun, and Jupiter has been on the north node. Now, this is pretty remarkable, considering the main thing regarding what happened at the Hamas attack was Uranus being right at the sun, the sun position of Israel. We also have to look at the larger context of both Israel and also Benjamin Netanyahu, because of their life phase. Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu are also in a life phase of an individual and of a country, which is the third Saturn opposition and the fourth nodal return. If you looked at it from the perspective of intention, it's the opportunity to realign with the original intent of the horoscope. However, it's also very often the time period where a person or a country will hit the wall, where basically if they don't change, well then then you're reaching the limitations and boundaries. So to have Jupiter on the north node of Israel at the same time that the Uranus is on the sun, and this condition is still going to be in place in April, when Jupiter and Uranus will be conjunct at almost 22 degrees of Taurus. So you could say that Israel is very much in the crosswires here. Now, if keep in mind here, though, if you look at this chart, 23 degrees Libra rising. So therefore, the nodal axis and in this eclipse season is almost exactly in line with the south node on Israel's rising sign and the north node on the descendant. Yet again, bringing up stuff from the past. And my gosh, in the last month, 2 months, a lot of the actual past history of the Israel project has come to light. You won't see it too often in the mainstream, but anyone who's willing to look at more alternative sources, you'll understand what was really going on in the creation of Israel. Actually, the entire project of Zionism, guess where it started? It started in Berlin, of all places, you know. So this requires a much deeper dive than we can say now. But I wanted to bring some of this stuff to your attention in light of the building of the energies leading up to this full moon. So just now, notice also before we look at Netanyahu's chart, the moon and Mars in Leo, and you'll remember we're now in a Leo overstory for Venus. Venus has moved into Virgo now, but for about 125 days, Venus was in Leo. And here you can see the signature of Saturn and Pluto right in between both of them in Leo. So let's shift, if you can, to the chart of, you can get a sense of how closely linked the fates of Israel are with Netanyahu. Now, I'm old enough to remember that during the so-called Six-Day War back in the 60s, the Netanyahu was one of the generals at that time period. So he's been linked to the Israel project, from the very beginning, and you can actually see why when you take a look at his chart. Here we have his 27-degree Libra sun, moon at 19 Libra. So the nodal axis is almost exactly in alignment with the moon and the sun. He was born near a new moon. And you can see his own, well, it's the same issue. He's in his fourth nodal return, and he is in his third Saturn opposition time. It's that really remarkable time period along the timeline of one's life between about 74 and a half and 76, where there's this confluence of the nodal return, realignment with original intent, and the confrontation with the Saturn opposition. Third one of those. The first one at puberty, the second about age 44, 45, and then the one that's happening now. So it's a huge turning point for both of them. And you'll notice, look at his Mars, 26 Leo, conjunct very close to Pluto. And so it's like that chart and Israel's chart are completely joined at the hip. And it looks to me, just as when we examine the chart of the United States, that the U.S. has had so many opportunities to realign with its original ideals, to get the lessons of the Chiron returns, and now being in the Pluto return, that which has the shadow which has not been looked at, then there's a whole hell of a lot of composting that will take place. And I think the same thing is true here. Now, last but not least, we'll look at the chart of who I sometimes, borrowing from the from some other commentators, the chart of Joe Stepford Biden. And I will not explain to you why that phrase is used. Maybe you can figure it out. If you remember the movie,
I'll bring it.
The Stepford Wives.
Hang on.
And if you've never seen Joe Biden's chart, it's also, you can clearly see from it as soon as it pops up here, what's at stake here for him. Here you can see he has Mars, Mercury, is Mars in the underworld in Scorpio, Venus at 28 Scorpio. There's that whole clumping of planets in the 12th house in Scorpio. And he is not in the same nodal or Saturn cycle, but the relationship of the lunar eclipse coming up has such, it's activating that entire, because you can see he has the Taurus moon and then all those planets in Scorpio. So the eclipse, the fact that the sun has moved into Scorpio and the eclipse at the Scorpio-Taurus axis, all three of these charts are clearly on the front lines during this eclipse season and leading up to this full moon, Scorpio full moon, and the lunar eclipse. This is not to be ignored or taken lightly. Now, those of us in our school, and I've often said this, this astrological paradigm is not about prediction. So I'm not really making any prediction here. Rather, what it is we're trying to tune into here is the intent of this eclipse season relative to the charts of Stepford, Biden, and Netanyahu, and the chart of Israel. There's certainly other players here, but just so much is elucidated just in these three charts that what we try to tune into is what is the intent of this? What messages are coming through? And if we include what I mentioned about the US chart, I look at this as an opportunity, we could say, for Israel, for Biden, for Netanyahu, to fundamentally change the game, to be able to go beyond, relative to what I said earlier, Naraya, about the decree, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth needs to be banished from this planet for all time. Is it possible for them to look at it that way? I mean, and I think that's what's on the front lines right now. I mean, history doesn't tell us that they're likely to, right? So it would seem to me the intent of this whole thing, and it may not culminate until next April, during the next eclipse season, where it's even more potent than even the one we're in now, that it would occur to me that the intent of this is that if this country, that country, U.S. and Israel, we can say those two, they've been joined at the hip for a long time too, for those who know about the connections between the American CIA and the Mossad. Anyway, that if these individuals, Netanyahu and Biden, we can get into the whole history on him in some other time, that if they do not transform in what is possible in the original intent of the charts, then it would seem to me that the project, just as Project Ukraine is a huge failure for Mr. Global and the powers that shouldn't be, but the same thing would be happening here. That the Israel project, Netanyahu is not going to survive this, I don't think. And neither do I think that Biden is surviving this, because basically even those that are writing his speeches are getting a little tired his performances, you know. So, I mean, it would seem that the jig might be up, you know. I mean, that's what I'm just reading into the intentions of this. But this is not to be taken lightly on any level. We must respect the importance of this. And just as Steiner said regarding lunar eclipses, you know, that if a person isn't truly awake, then these forces can come in and direct action. And it's more than anything, it's incredibly important for us to be awake and to be in contact with our spiritual will and to connect with the forces of the good, you know, however you want to look at that. And at the same time to know that we ourselves are not in charge. Our own spiritual will in alignment with great mystery can make a difference. And I think that is true in our school. That's why we do what we do. But nevertheless, we have to not be attached to outcome either, because from the celestial all is well. And that those of us that looked into that annular eclipse, you know, and it's as if that transmission coming from the eye of God, you know, coming through, you know, illuminating our inner knowingness and our inner wisdom, may that illuminate the way forward for the world at this time. Over to you.
Yeah, I totally can only second that, Daniel. The awakeness, the awareness is always our best. I don't even like the word shield, but it is our shield and armor against any influences of those dark forces that are still trying to grab as much as they can, even as they know they are in their downfall. And I keep repeating it. It's like in good psychopathic fashion. They will not just give up easily. They take down with them as much as and as many as possible. So this awakeness, this connection to our own soul, to our own spirit, to great mystery, and the intention to be a force of good or force of the light, however anyone wants to phrase that, that is our greatest asset at this time. And also, I mean, it's always good sport to look into the global ramifications of these things, as in this case the eclipses. I just would like to point out also for anyone who watches this, that obviously also take a good look at the intention or the way these eclipses fall on your personal chart. From my own personal experience, this is a huge activation of my previous relational axis coming from the position of the moon, and allows me now, with the awareness and the inner workings that are associated with that, to then shift into the relational axis that is actually my current life purpose intent, as written in my wonderful blueprint chart. And for anyone who wants to look into that deeper, I would highly recommend our very imminent course 3. It's been completely overhauled, redone, and is being released in the next couple of weeks. It is called Relationships, and is all about the inner sacred marriage process, how to achieve wholeness, but also how to understand relationships better on the outward expression of as they appear in our lives. So yes, I really warmly, highly recommend that. And with that, Daniel, it's over to you for last comments.
Well, yes. One thing, Naraya, I think I mentioned this to you, that the very last gig I have before returning home is happening right exactly at the time of the full moon. You know, I will be giving a presentation up there at Lizzie's, you know, and that's on Saturday. But the thing for me personally is that the degree is 509 Taurus, my natal north node, because I'm also in my fourth nodal return, is 505 Taurus. You know, it's going to be happening right with that full moon right on my north node. So I guess I'm putting myself very much in the front lines of this whole process. So I mean that's the big event we have. You're going to be there too. You're going to make a presentation also there up there in Goodyear, Arizona. If anybody's in that area, you might want to check out. We've been advertising that. But last but not least here, I want to say, given that this is the bottoming out of Kali Yuga, and what that means is the greatest density, the greatest, as far as consensus reality goes, the deepest descent into materialism, with the attempt of the powers that shouldn't be to erase spirit and soul and ether and all those things, that it's inevitable for that to happen in cycles of history. But it gives us an opportunity to clearly see what's at stake, where the heart opening during this time period is even more remarkable than any heart opening in Sat Yuga or Golden Age, because everybody's got it open. So the spiritual will to align with that which is authentic in being a human being, the goodness of our connection to soul and spirit, is an opening of the heart. It is much more possible during this time period because you can see it more clearly, and so that's what also part of the project of our school is, and hopefully those of you who are listening in all your own ways to know that this time is the time we were purposely here at this time to incarnate for, so let us be together and in unity regarding this great project of dreaming the vision forward.
I think, Daniel, that was the perfect final word to this. I would like to thank everyone who's watching. I'll be putting all the resources and links in the description box below. We very much look forward to your feedback, to your comments, to seeing you on one or the other call and appearance of the school. And so with that, bye for now.
Thank you.